and welcome to the Two Consoles Too Late podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Keebler, and I am Two Consoles Too Late. What does that mean? Here at this podcast, we look at the classics and the not-so-classics of retro gaming, often for the very first time, and with no nostalgia. And for the first episode of 2026, we are looking at Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as part of the Year of the Sequel. I'm also going to do some going long, and we're going to have some auction alert and take a look at my Holy Grail consoles over on the Shop Goodwills. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go. All right, so before we get into what I call the meat and potatoes of the podcast, I just want to take a brief detour. I recently just found out that the host of the Computer Chronicles, the public television series from the 80s, 90s, and I think the early 2000s. The host, Stewart Cheifet, just passed away December 28th at the age of 86. Basically, for those who don't know, if you grew up before YouTube and before podcasts, basically before anyone with a webcam and a strong opinion, the Computer Chronicles was basically kind of how you learned about technology. It was a public television series highlighting what was happening in tech, and I would say that they were at the forefront of the burgeoning information age. And it's great. It was just, the show was just basically Stewart Cheifet and Gary Kildall in the early episodes, and they were just talking about shit like modems, networking, the latest Macintosh computer. Even I think they had an episode about game consoles. And they would have guests on to, talk about, the topic that was being discussed. And you know what? The interviews and the guests were sometimes a little awkward. But personally, I think that's kind of really added to the appeal of the show. I just recently got into the Computer Chronicles. I think I did like a search for like vintage computer documentaries, and the Computer Chronicles came up. And I just started binging the show. I think it started in 84. And like I said, I think it went up into the 2000s. But it's just, I don't know. I cannot describe just the amount of passion that you just kind of saw in Stewart Cheifet. I mean, he knew a lot about tech, and he really wanted to get the word out about tech and this movement that was happening around him. And I just can't speak highly enough of the show and what he did. And apparently I saw Stewart Cheifet on an interview, and he was talking about the Computer Chronicles, and he was saying that we just uploaded all the episodes, and we don't really care if we make any money from it. We just wanted to get them up there. And apparently he didn't make any money when he was doing the show. So I just every time I watch the Computer Chronicles, it doesn't make me nostalgic, but it does inspire me somehow. And I've always kind of said, if I ever do a video podcast, I would want the production value to have that sort of aesthetic that the Computer Chronicles had. Just like have some ferns in the background, a real, kind of a cheesy intro. Maybe I'd wear like a polyester suit. I don't know. But anyway, so I was a little sad to hear about this. So rest in peace, Stewart Cheifet at the age of 86. A good long haul and a massive contribution to the world of media and tech.
Going long. It is going long. Looking long. Going long. It is going long. Looking long.
Every Saturday at 7:30, you can check out the YouTubes at youtube.com/2consoles2late, and I live stream a game from the PS1 Long Box collection. And this past live stream, I played Defcon 5, which is a Doom clone. It was created by Data East. It's the same people who made Bad Dudes. And it started off kind of interesting. It had this FMV intro, looked a little bit like Alien, the movie. But the game itself wasn't very good. The controls were kind of clunky. The graphics weren't great. The level design was not good at all. I spent the first 30 minutes trying to find the control room. And it's just not a good Doom clone. A late 90s console first-person shooter that looked like Doom but completely misunderstood why Doom worked. But the thing is that this is now like the third Doom clone that I've played in the PS1 Long Box collection, because I played Kiliak the DNA Imperative, Alien Trilogy, now DEFCON 5, and that's not even counting the actual game of Doom in the PS1 Long Box library. And with the release of Metroid Prime 4, I've been, I would say, playing a lot of first-person shooters. But more and more, I've been seeing this term on the internet and hearing it on other podcasts, and for some reason, it just sort of is jumping out at me. I've been hearing this term, boomer shooter. And to that, I have to say, stick it! Because I fucking hate it. This term just rubs me the wrong way. First off, it's historically completely inaccurate, okay? Boomers did not define games like Doom. Doom was created by the people at id Software, most notably John Romero and John Carmack, who are Gen X. And those games, those early console first-person shooters, were made by mostly Gen X and early millennials, or Zennials. So by the time Doom came out in, 1993, most baby boomers, we're going to be ageist about this, were people who were adults with jobs, families, mortgages, living the American dream. They weren't hosting LAN parties. So just the term boomer shooter is wrong. Number two, it's straight up fucking ageist. And I'm not going to dance around it anymore. It's 2026 and the gloves are coming off. Okay? If you use the term boomer, you're probably using it as an insult. You're trying to say that something is old, out of touch, unrefined. So when you say boomer shooter, what you're saying is that the game is old, dumb, and primitive, but it's kind of funny. But that's just straight up ageist. And you know what? I like being old. I like being out of touch, and I like being unrefined. This is two consoles too late, folks. So if you're out there and you're using the term boomer shooter, or just using the term boomer in a derogatory way, to that I have to say, stick it! And you can go fuck yourself. But that all being said, rant over. DEFCON 5, Doom clone, early console first-person shooter that I just did not like. All right, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So before we jump into this, let's get something out in the open right away. I don't really go for the blue blur. When it comes down to between Mario and Sonic, I prefer Sonic, but I prefer the idea of Sonic more than actually playing the games. I like the music of Sonic. I like the blue sky aesthetic of Sonic. I like the attitude of Sonic. I really like the movies far more than the games. The only Sonic game I've ever actually finished was Sonic Frontiers, which was kind of an open-worldy 3D adventure. But Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is important as a sequel, and this is what I'm calling the year of the sequel. So, second efforts often cause a shift. Godfather Part 2, The Cure's 17 Seconds. They expand things, but sometimes they rethink things. And Sonic 2 is very much that kind of sequel. It expanded on the original, with more zones. It added the spin dash, and it added the character good old Miles Prower, also known as Tails. Now, when I say that there is no nostalgia at the beginning of the podcast, I have to admit I did own Sonic 2 back in the day. And I know this because I vividly remember Casino Night Zone. When I got to Casino Night Zone, something just clicked and I remembered it immediately. That neon casino aesthetic just burned itself into my brain with that music. While I may have not beaten the game, I definitely remember bouncing around on the slot machines and pinball bumpers. So during my research, I learned that Sonic 2, the original vision, was actually way more interesting than the game we actually ended up with. Unfortunately, Sega only allowed 9 months for the development of the game, and there was some internal strife happening at Sega Technical Institute. Hirokazu Yasuhara, assuming he had 2 years of development, conceived a plot in which Robotnik had taken over the world and Sonic had used time travel in order to stop him. Yasuhara's concept featured a world map that would change in every time period, and it would provide access to the different levels. But the idea was cut as it required too many levels and it took too much time to develop. As an example, the Hilltop Zone, which features dinosaur enemies, was actually conceived to be a past version of the Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1, while zones like the Chemical Plant and the Casino Night Zones were supposed to be, I guess, visions of the Robotnik-ruled future. So some of the zones that got cut out were Hidden Palace Zone, Wood Zone, and Dust Hill Zone. The Hidden Palace Zone can be played apparently in Sonic Origins, if you want to see what that looks like. But when I found this out, I was really kind of disappointed and bummed out because that sounded really interesting, because the version of Sonic the Hedgehog that we got just wasn't that good. My first playthrough of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I decided to sit down and play it without the miracle of save states, because I knew going into this game I was not going to be able to get through it without save states. So I got as far as the Hilltop Zone, and I got as far as the Robotnik boss, and I died, and I didn't feel like continuing. So my second playthrough, I decided, okay, one of my goals in this game is to unlock Super Sonic, and to do that, I need to collect all the Chaos Emeralds, and to do that, I have to complete all the special stages. And this can be done in the Emerald Hill Zone. And the Emerald Hill Zone is the first stage of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and it is very much like the Green Hill Zone. It's sort of like a primer for the player. It's sort of like, I would say that it reintroduces the player back into the game. If you had played Sonic the Hedgehog 1, okay, you know, it's very much like the first, but there's going to be some changes. Mostly being the spin dash. I turned Tails off. I found Tails very annoying. I played only as Sonic, but you can play with Sonic and Tails, but I turned Tails off. So here I am in the Emerald Hill Zone, and the Emerald Hill Zone has 7 star post checkpoints, and there are 7 Chaos Emeralds. And you are able to get all the Chaos Emeralds in the Emerald Hill Zone, and that's what I decided to do. So with the help of a video by YouTuber Hungry Garaya, I was able to unlock Super Sonic. So on paper, and I guess in my own little mind, I thought that unlocking Super Sonic would really open up the game and make it more accessible, perhaps make it a little bit more easier. But that was on paper, because Super Sonic unlocks invincibility. When you unlock Super Sonic, you're invincible, you have speed shoes, and you have unlimited power, at least until your rings run out. However, in practice, once I unlocked Super Sonic, I found it to be an absolute hindrance. Super Sonic is, one, hard to control. His movements are very sloppy. I guess it's because of those speed shoes. You end up overshooting platforms, and especially in the later levels like Mystic Cave Zone and Metropolis Zone, you have to do some precision platforming that just is very hard to do with Super Sonic. I died in stupid ways and missed a cave zone. I fell down a pit, and you can't jump out of it. So the only thing to do is just to sit there, let your rings run out, and then Sonic died on spikes. So here I am. My goal was to unlock Supersonic, thinking, oh, this is only going to help me. But it turns out that having Supersonic did not help at all. And of course, there's no option to turn, you can't just turn on Supersonic. Once you reach 50 rings and you hit the jump button, boom, you're Supersonic. And that was it. So I played through the game. I had unlocked Supersonic. But by the time I hit the Metropolis zone, I was ready for this game to be over. I like the Metropolis zone. I can definitely see where it was inspired by the film Metropolis. But then they've got these spinning nut and bolt elevators. But they really kind of acted like traps, because once I went up these nut and bolt elevators, there was like these enemies that look like sheriff's badges, and they would explode and they would hit you, and that would cause you to fall off the nut and bolt elevator, making you backtrack a couple screens so that you could reset the elevator so that the nut was at the bottom of the bolt. So I played on for about another hour, and I got as far as the Wing Fortress zone, once again with those wonderful save states that we all know and love. And I reached the end boss without Supersonic, and at that point I was done. I had played enough Sonic the Hedgehog 2. The first sequel of 2026 was in the books, and the jury was in. I did not like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I think the only way that I would play this game, at least on original hardware, would have to be on the Sega Genesis CDX, which is one of my holy grails of video game consoles. But where could I find one of these ultra rare video game consoles? On Auction Alert.
Auction alert.
If you are looking for a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, a physical copy that you want to play on your Sega Genesis and not use it as a doorstop, you can definitely get a copy on the shop Goodwills. I'm looking at a copy right now that's coming from the Goodwill Industries of South Texas. There's 1 day, 21 hours left on this auction. There's only one bid, and it's at $12.99. So with shipping, that actually brings it above price charting. So yes, physical copies can be had on the shop Goodwills of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's a very common game. It's sold God knows how many millions of copies. So yeah, you can definitely get one. But I don't want to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I want to talk about some rare consoles on the shop Goodwills. And like I said in the intro, one of my holy grail video game consoles is the Sega Genesis CDX Multimedia CD-ROM Entertainment System. At least that's what the title in this listing says. A Sega Genesis CDX. Now, why is this one of my holy grails? Because it's so weird. It plays Sega CD games. It plays Sega Genesis games, but it looks like a Discman, And I don't know. It's just, when I found out about this console, I was like, I must have one. And of course, the one console that I want, you can't get these things for, there's no way you can get it for less than $400. I would say probably not less than $500. But I've been seeing them more and more here on the shop Goodwills. So there is one on the shop Goodwills. This is coming from the Goodwill Industries of Lane and South Coast counties. Now, where the hell is that? That is in Eugene, Oregon. All right. So this is coming out of Oregon. And right now, this Sega Genesis CDX with 1 day, 21 hours left on this auction with 15 bids is at $450. And I'm guessing it's going to go for well north of $500. The listing only says that it powers on, and it does not include any power cords, does not include any AV cables, but it does include a Sega CD copy of Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure, which is a game we talked about here on the podcast. So I'm going to keep my eye on this. I'm definitely in no position to pick this up, but every time I see one of these, my mouth waters with the want and need of this rare console. But another rare-ish video game console on the shop Goodwills right now is coming from the Goodwill of Memphis. And it is a TurboGrafx 16 video game console with all the accessories, and it includes a game. It includes Keith Courage and Alpha Zones. And right now, with 1 day and 23 hours left on this auction, it has 19 bids, and it's up to $186. TurboGrafx 16, it's just one of those consoles it's a retro console I always want to get my hands on. The plugin, they do have a plug and play version. There's a PC Engine version, but there's also a TurboGrafx mini version. Apparently there's some issues with the controller or whatnot, but you can't get the mini version, the plug and play versions, for less than like $300. And I just started emulating TurboGrafx on my Wii. So I have no need for this, but it's just something I always look out for here on the Shop Goodwills. Oh, and one more auction I forgot to feature. I'm sorry. Can't do an auction alert without a PS1 Long Box game, right? The Goodwill of Ashtabula, which I think I featured an auction that they had before. They've got a copy of Resident Evil, untested. Currently, this one, let's see here, there's 5 bids with 1 day, 21 hours left on this auction. It's up to $81, but historically, I would say Resident Evil, at least the long box version, probably going to go for about $130. Once again, the cover art sort of peeling off. It does have the manual, and the disc doesn't look... Actually, the disc looks really good. It's just that cover art doesn't look too good. So I'm keeping my eye on this, but I don't think I'm going to pick it up. But I couldn't do an auction alert without talking about a PS1 Long Box game, right? So there we go. The first game in the year of the sequel. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I mean, it kind of refined Sonic, and it gave us Tails, also known as Miles per Hour. And but I think at the end of the day, Sonic 2 was just a giant marketing ploy. Sonic Tuesday, November 24th, 1992, was just a day designed to sell video games and video game consoles for Christmas. That's it. I think the creative vision of Mr. Yashuhara was stomped on by Sega, and all they wanted was to make that bling and stick it to Nintendo, which they kind of did. It's funny because as I was playing this, I remembered that I actually have the Sega Mega Collection on GameCube, and that was like a red flag for me. I'm like, oh God, I forgot I had a video game. And that's a sign that, you know what? You should be playing these video games rather than buying them. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I've been the host, Jackson Keebler. You can check me out on the interwebs. Just type in 2 Consoles Too Late, and there I will be every Saturday, 7:30 a.m. Check me out on the YouTubes, doing a live stream of one of my many PS1 Long Box games. But as always, have a good one. I love you, and goodbye. Of course the Ravens lost. The NFL is fixed. And guess what? John Harbaugh is going to be fired, and Lamar Jackson is going to go play golf in Florida and sign a contract with another team. You heard it here first.